Hello, everybody, and welcome to the next episode of Hot Takes. It's an MSI extravaganza, joined by Davide and Ethan as always. And guys, how much are you looking forward to watching matches from 9 p.m. till 5 a.m. every day for the next 2 weeks?
I'm like have to like literally mentally destroy my entire routine. So it will be honestly very, very damaging for my body, but I hope it will be worth it.
I'm much more of a night guy usually. But anyway, I'll be like on the site for the MSI,
Oh
so
yeah,
I'm
that's true.
I should be fine.
Yeah, not bad. Davide, you're gonna have to just like completely you be like a night worker basically, and just try and sleep through the day.
Yeah.
Is it what's
Hopefully my body will resist.
Yeah. Well, what's the weather like where you are? Because where I am, it's been like very hot recently, and I couldn't imagine trying to get my sleep in during the middle of the day when it's like 30, 35 degrees.
I'm lucky I have AC in the house, so I
Okay,
guess that will do it.
nice. Good. You'll be all right then. Um, let's get stuck in then. Just before we do the MSI stuff, which will be like 90% of the episode, we just quickly touch on the end of Masters. So we're a couple of days on from that now. And finally, Paper Rex have won a global title, which is crazy considering that they've been to like almost every single one. They went to 9 in a row. They've been Pacific's like most consistent top team for that whole time, like the last 3 years, but just somehow never actually got one over the line. They had a couple of finals that they lost. Um, but yeah, it was kind of tough because them and against Fnatic in the final, I feel like pretty much everyone would have been happy, unless you're a massive fan of either one specifically. Pretty much every neutral was happy to see either team win. Like both teams have got like really nice personalities on them. They also both had their own stories where it would have been good to see them win again. With Fnatic, they had 2023 where they won a couple of global events, but then since then they're always compared back to that, and kind of would have been nice for them to kind of get back to the glory days as well. Um, and yeah, kind of a final where you didn't really want to see either team lose. But yeah, nice for Paper X. And there has been like some complete rubbish immediately after the final of people calling for heads on the chopping block from Fnatic, talking about which players they need to get rid of and all that. After they literally just won EMEA and then came second in the international tournament, like it's not quite the disaster that I think some people are thinking it is. Um, but yeah, especially for a team that hadn't won a global event for like a year and a half anyway, it's not like they should really be expected to smash everyone. But there you go. Um, Also, viewership wise, was a bit of a funny one. So this is from the stuff that you can see on esports charts. The final got to 1.1 million viewers, which in the grand scheme of esports is obviously very good still. Like most esports would love to get anywhere near a million viewers. Um,
And it's without the Chinese
yeah,
viewership, right?
So yeah, Riot did actually make a post before the final saying that at some point in the tournament there'd been a peak of 2.8 million. We don't know
Yeah.
which game it was. They just said we reached 2.8 million viewers. Obviously that would be with China. I don't know that the final would have definitely beaten it because there weren't any Chinese teams in the final. But then PaperX and Fnatic are like both popular, like globally pretty much. So the final may well have beat it. I imagine if it did, Riot would say after they said about the last peak. Um, but I think the biggest issue that they had, because that peak is actually down from the last Masters that was in March, Masters Bangkok. Like average viewership was up, hours watched, and basically everything else was up except for the peak wasn't as high as earlier this year. Um, but it's almost like it's probably at 99% down to the fact that Counter Strike's major was literally the same time, which is really odd scheduling. I don't know how. Obviously, they wouldn't be exactly talking to each other. I don't think to agree when to not overlap dates. So it's probably just a massive coincidence that they happen to be arranging them at the same time. But essentially, I think it's probably cannibalized like a decent chunk of viewers off of Valorant Masters, which is a bit of a shame for Riot. But yeah, 1.1 million ain't exactly that bad anyway. Probably the worst part is that Counter Strike is obviously their competition, and it probably just looks a bit disappointing to be the one that missed out on a few viewers. So you see Counter-Strike. This is from Esports Charts as well. The Counter-Strike major got 1.7 million peak during the final. So clearly showing of the two that both had big events happening at the same time. Clearly Counter-Strike is the winner and is still the bigger game. But yeah, 1.1 million. Not exactly a disaster by any means. Did you guys catch any of it at all?
I actually watched most of the series, I think, in the final. Kind of want to like just to say on the positive trend, technically it was still higher than Shanghai's last year,
Yeah,
as far as I know, because I think Shanghai was like not even a
900.
million.
Yeah,
That's still that's still positive. I think for me it was like um I've I'm a fan. I would probably say of personal personalities within those two teams. Uh, and I was kind of like, I'm not sure because I started following Valorant more last year, so I'm not really sure of how the teams have been before that, you know.
yeah,
So coming into the finals for me was like honestly, I just want to see the best, like highest quality possible. I think I'm not sure from a very strategical point of view that was good, but I think it was like it was still a very enjoyable final for me.
yeah,
Um, definitely would love to see more. It's for me honestly kind of unlucky because I think there were like some others really good teams that didn't like step up to the level they were
yeah.
honestly expected to. So that might be a little bit of a shame, but that sets it up better for VCT. At least that time we will be in Europe and we can watch games
Yeah.
at the same time zone without having to wait like until like you know 9, 10, 10
Yeah, what was
in
a
the
bit
evening.
weird is that because obviously so this was in Toronto and now MSI's in Vancouver, isn't it? Right. So both in
Yeah,
Canada. I'm guessing they're both the same time zone, or they wouldn't be far off. But for Masters Toronto and Valorant, they had the games way earlier in the day. So like local time, the games are starting at noon, which meant that in Europe their games started like 6 p.m., which was fine. And
yeah.
yeah, obviously for MSI, they're doing it like clearly more like locally. So I guess I don't know what time it is locally, but I guess it's just like 5 6 p.m. in the evening. But yeah, it's just interesting.
Yes, it should be 5 p.m. I think the main reason is just that they kind of wanted to cater to China and in Korea particularly
Mhm.
in that
But then
sense
for that,
because
doesn't it mean
if it's
yeah? But so that means like Masters Toronto would have been better for Korea and China, right? To have it slightly earlier in the day. Wouldn't
no,
have that
it's
been like their
actually
evening?
worse for them.
Oh, really?
It's like very very late at night technically.
Ah, right.
Because like if matches start like some of the matches I know start at 2 a.m. CET time, which then means that it should be technically early morning for Chinese, Korean, Asian viewers, you know.
Hmm.
And that's like it's basically like 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, I think, around that time
Fair enough.
frame.
Yep. Cool. Right. Shall we get on to the bigger one, the more important one right now then? Yeah, let's have a chat
Cool.
about MSI. And before we go actually into the power rankings, I just wanted to shout out the stuff that you guys have been doing on Hotspawn. We're obviously going to be we're self-promoting right now shamelessly, but this is a Hotspawn show and we all work for Hotspawn. So anyone watching, I would urge you to go to hotspawn.com, check out the League of Legends coverage. These guys have been doing previews of literally every single team in the tournament. So if there's any team that you've not followed, obviously we've got teams from all the regions. Not that many people have quite the time to watch all of them, myself included. So I need to be catching up on some of these. So yeah, do check these out and see what's going on here. I think a couple more to come out still, so keep your eyes peeled as well. But yeah, let's dive into the rankings, shall we? What we're all here for. So I think we can go roll by roll, and then we'll end with the overall team rankings at the end. So what we can see here, what we've got is the rankings for each person, which you can see from the columns here, and then the overall ranking is essentially an average of of where we each place the players all combined. Davide did some top level Excel to get this all working automatically. Far more advanced than I could do. Shall we start with
Same.
number 10 then and see who is the worst top laner at MSI? Drum roll.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a default one because I actually think Gigo is like the best player on Furia. This guy has been like I think the key of their success. As we could see in playoff, he was like the MVP of every match I think in the upper bracket and in the lower, and he was also the final MVP if I'm not mistaken. So I think he's very good. I just don't know much. I think he's very versatile in his playstyle. But the thing is, I just think Brazil overall, and I think it will be something pretty consistent for every other roles, right? Brazil is not like the best, let's say historically. So I guess Furia will not get out of the play-in. I think Gam have a better chance of getting out of the play-in. So for sure, I think you have to put every of the player I think in the 10th place.
Yeah, it is harsh because like obviously there can be players from weaker regions that are like standout players and are better than the rest, like and well, yeah, and could match up to other regions. The thing is when they are playing in like the worst region where the competition is worse, it is hard to
Yeah.
tell like how much of that is them just being like a bit better than everybody else and smashing them, or is it that they are actually of a level where they're going to be beyond the 10th place in their role at MSI. So it is a bit of a difficult one. What do you reckon, Davide?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, the whole thing for me for like Gigo is like he has been really good on carry tops, um, which has done very well for Furia. But like when you put him up against the other top laners at this MSI, I doubt he can find as big opportunities as he may have had throughout the past split.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, honestly, for me, he's still a very interesting player. Like, I didn't know about this guy until I actually started watching Fury a little bit. And if there is a player that I'm interested in seeing more from, it's probably him right now.
I
So
think
still keep an eye on him. I think it's
I
definitely
think like
worth.
we'll come back on it like further like later, but I think he's a bit of the same player, like the same kind of player than Kiaya is for Gam. But yeah, we'll come back on that.
Yeah. Well, maybe I'll do. Let's reveal a few, and then we'll talk through them. So I'll go up to 7th.
Yeah.
And what we got. So Broken Blade on average is next, and it's a bit of a mix. So it's a few differences of opinion. And to be fair, with Broken Blade, like I just. I think a few of my picks are going to just have like EMEA bias, because I will accept like Broken Blade hasn't been that great so far this year, or at least in the last split wasn't particularly great. But then I just find it, I don't know, I'm just used to him being good. You know what I mean? It's hard to actually like think he's gonna not turn it around. But yeah, what were your guys' thoughts on BB in 9th place?
So I put like if I put baby ninth, it's because he's been like I think by far the worst player from the teams I watched. So I don't take in consideration Furia that much, but he's been the I think yeah one of the worst player, and I think it just showed he didn't get to the All Pro team in the regular season. He's been having a very hard time finding his off meta picks like his little pocket picks like he did last year. I think a lot of his picks didn't just work out. And other than that, I think in general Europe doesn't have a good pool of top laner. I think it's not where we shine the most.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, the only one that really stood out to me was Naknako, because of course, like Mirwin and BB went to the final, but I think it was not at all up to them to go to the final, you know. Even though Mirwin had some good performances, to be honest, like there are some picks where he's pretty good at, but overall I feel like he's a bit limited in terms of champion pool too. I'm just transitioning to Mirwin, but I think he's a bit limited in terms of champion pool. I think he doesn't have the best laning phase at all, and I think the thing is with like all player in EMEA in all top laner, I think they are very very bad when it comes to carry tops, and I think that's why Kana like was so stood out the most of all the LEC top laners. Is because he's the kind of guy that can carry, that can take on those carry picks, and that will always win lane, right? Which is not the case of Mirwin and BB. And just to talk a bit about Kaya, this is a guy who also plays a lot of carry, a bit like Kana, and he's actually been also a guy that has carried GAM over and over again. While CFO, they rely more on their bot lane, for example, GAM like made their way to through playoff because of Kaya mainly, and because his team is playing for him. So yeah.
Cool.
I was wondering why you didn't mention Kana. Like you mentioned
Same,
Anako,
yeah.
but like I mean, like yeah, it was
Yeah.
like Kana is definitely would be I like for me would be higher than any of these
Yeah.
three
Yeah,
for
for
sure
sure.
if he was there. The whole thing for me for BB is like I think he has compared to last year had that drop. I wouldn't be surprised if he somehow pulls it off back again. But
Yeah,
I
same.
think that doesn't like if we were to judge over a little bit, considering both potential and then over the past few months, I still think he didn't probably do as much as Kiaya within their own teams. Um, and yeah, I mean that's basically why I put Mirwin on top of Kiaya just because of the amount of picks the guy has, and I think with given how many drafts like fearless draft series we're going to have, regardless of how MCOI plays, I think that will play out like that will be quite an important thing. Like I value champion pool a lot, and you probably see it being a trend across my power rankings as far as I remember. Um, but yeah, so honestly, I think they're honestly quite close among the three. Like I don't think Mirwin is clearly above BB. I just think that coming into this tournament, he did obviously fare better.
I think that's fair enough. Let's see our next three. Yeah, Rest and Driver is no surprise, I think. There we go. So we got Rest and or Driver, Bwipo, and Doran. Doran,
So I think yeah,
I was going to say has he jumped up a bit thanks to gapping Zeus, or would you reckon? How much recency
I mean
bias is there?
he usually does, right? Gapping Zeus. Like it's been a common trend in the past few years that Doran's gapping Zeus. But I have to say, yeah, he played very well in the MSI road to in the road to MSI, sorry. But just before I go on Doran, I wanted to come back a bit on Rest and Driver because I think those two can be underestimated, right? Like Davide said, the fearless is a very important feature of the new tournaments, and Rest and Driver because they are very complementary. They have just an edge on their opponents because I think out of all the players I'm seeing right now, like because they are two, they have the largest champion pool for sure to me. I also think like a lot of those players I'm seeing right now are relying a lot on pocket picks, such as Bwipo and Mirin, for example, while they are very good at the meta picks. They are very good at on their own things, and that's a very very important I think data to have on the top lane. And also Doran, when it comes to Doran, I think this guy, you just don't know in which side of the coin you're gonna land, right? And that's a bit of the problem with him, is that he can either do a 0-4, and even though he's weak side, he can get dove like over and over again, or he can like somehow play the weak side perfectly and just like get out with 2 or 3 kills and carry the later stages. So I'm just wondering which side we're gonna see, and because of that, I've put like 3 other players that I feel are more consistent. Have been more consistent overall this year, because I think Doran had a huge impact on the fact that T1 was not performing before 0-2 MSI. So yeah.
Well, I've gone.
Take on rest. Sorry.
I was going to
Yeah,
say
yeah,
I've gone full recency bias, which is why you don't see Doran in mine yet. But yeah, go on, Davide.
Like for me, the whole thing about the rest and drive is like I'm actually looking at kind of also considering the patch, because we started seeing a lot of carry tops recently. There will be the Gangplank buff,
yeah.
who we know like driver can play because he showed it at first stand, and I think like you mentioned, CFO really needs that flexibility up in the top lane. The main reason I think I put them lower than Wipo is the fact that you actually have to swap out the players back and forth, so you can kind of know what that will do for the team. Although we've also started seeing like Rast being able to play like a little bit more of the impactful carry tops in that sense as
Yeah, I think you
well.
play Jace a lot.
Yeah, so it's like it doesn't really. I think it's more due to how the team plan wants to play rather than champion pool, but it will still kind of give out in that sense.
You kind of you're
Weeple for
telegraphing a bit what
yeah.
you're going to be trying to do, maybe that draft, depending on the player. Right?
Yes, exactly. For Weeple, for me, it's like I think he has been good. I think just like kind of the Mirwin thing, we know that he has a very deep champion pool, and he always tries to go for these edges. I think he has been clearly the best top, I would say, in NA. Maybe the only one that came close was Fudge, but even then he wasn't able to like be as consistent. And then for Doran, like I talked about this. It's like Doran. I'm someone who values consistency over explore. Even though he had a really strong MSI form, which I think would have definitely pushed him above some probably 1 or 2 players within this ranking. It's only been 2 series, and unless I see more of this, I don't think I can rate him any higher. And also because I think I still have to see more from him when he's put on those carry tops. Like we saw how T1 tried to put him on a weak side spot most of the time, and that didn't work out for T1. Obviously, that doesn't really have to do much with Doran itself as a player, but it's like he wasn't able to pull off the same impact, for example, as a Flandre, who when he's put on weak side, and then obviously we can talk about this later, he doesn't like get the same amount of utility and contribution to the team, I think.
Yeah.
Well, let's see where Flandre is then, because clearly he's in the top 3. So our top 3 top laners. Number 3, Flandre. Number 2, Bin. Number 1, Keen. I don't think that number 1 is much of a surprise, seeing as it's unanimous. But Ethan, you've got Bin number 3.
Yeah. I mean,
bold.
Maybe I've been like impacted by the recency bias too, but to be honest, like Bin has always been like funny. Bin has always been, but Bin has always been like one of the best top laners in the world, especially in those international competitions. I think was it like the last MSI that he made that crazy play on Camille where he just flash over the Baron pit, right? Yeah, I think Bin will be up there for sure. I've just I just wanted to put Flandre because I think this guy deserves credit. I think not a lot of people are talking about him, especially because, as Davide said, he's playing a lot the weak side. But when it comes to weak side, I'm not sure Flandre have like any competition in the top lane right now. I think Keane is always better when he's put strong side. I think it's the same for Bin. So yeah, I think like we are seeing more and more. Like I think in playoff it was really a big thing. We are seeing more and more of top laners playing tanks, Ornn, Sion, Cassante, and everything. And I think like even Keane, I think in the Road to MSI against HLE, he played like I think 5 games of tanks or 4. But and it's something like it will be important. I think coming in this playoff, especially because I think the lane swap mechanics. I think the teams are understanding them much better than before, and so I think we're gonna see more and more of tanks, and I believe Flandre will have the edge over everyone in this list. In that regard, I just think like obviously you can't put Kin second because this guy is just like he's been the best for sure. Like he's been the best top laner throughout the year. First because he's playing in the best league of the world, and second because he just smurfed that league with Genji. And you can put him on carry or on tanks. I think he will do the job, but on carry, I think that's where he's the most comfortable. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing if Bin can adapt to the tank meta or if he will stay on his comfort fighter picks to actually counter those tanks.
Yep. I think I'm excited to see Bin because I think it should be like an angry Bin after losing the final. He had some quote about like trying to say that I can't remember what it was exactly. Saying that like AL like didn't win the LPL properly or something like that. Like this guy is pissed off, and I'm like eagerly anticipating seeing how he comes to play after he's been pissed off for a couple of weeks.
He said he didn't like he said the AL LPL didn't add as much value as MSI or the Soul Split will have, I think.
Oh, there we go. He's
Which
clearly
is
not a happy bunny.
not true, Imo. But
What do you reckon, Davide, on the top 3?
For me, it's like, so I'm judging for like taking consideration kind of the same criteria as I said before. I think for me, actually, like if there is a player like and then we'll talk about this later. Like if there is a player that can crack a little bit, I think in Genji is actually Keen, and like they kind of tried to do that, especially Home Alive, throughout the season. The main reason I still put King higher is just that I think he's very, very stable. He's very, most of the time, he's very stable. He can manage a lot of matchups, even though he probably is the one that gets sacrificed in terms of attention and then just general draft priority. But he is also able to like get the good picks and then make those picks work when he has to do it. I just think that, for example, Bean and Flandre have kind of a lower ceiling compared to him. Flandre mainly for me, it's like he has been very, very instrumental to what AL does, but I think from an individual level, I think still Bean is the better player. And even though I think Flandre matches the meta and the way he plays for the team more, for me, Ben actually has stayed more or less the same. It's like I'm rating him lower compared to last year. It's just I think that within how the team has changed on a macro level, like dynamically, he cannot exert and use his strengths as much as he would like to have this year compared to last year. Which is why I'm interested to see whether actually BLG can kind of figure this thing out, because that will also kind of dictate how much BLG and obviously Ben as a player will perform at this MSI.
Yeah, definitely. Right, shall we move on to the jungle then? Let's see who is the worst jungler at MSI. We might just be bullying the Brazilian fans here. What do you know? It's Furious Jungler tattoo. Again, I like probably what we said for top lane can pretty much apply to all of them. Just that it is hard to gauge in like the weaker, in the weaker region. Davide, you're the jungle expert. What do you reckon?
So for me, like Tattoo is like I haven't seen much from him. Or I mean, has had a really clear role within Furia, which is basically kind of be the engager slash playmaking jungler. He plays a lot of like engaged champions and stuff that wants to skirmish battle, which I think is mostly meta, but we haven't really seen him much on carries, which then kind of how can I say puts me in doubt of how he can kind of exert his carriness at MSI, especially because obviously there are like a lot of good junglers. I think probably jungle and mid are the most stacked roles.
Yeah,
If
I
I had
totally
to
agree.
think about it, especially junglers, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a little bit of bias from my side, but
No,
I
I
still
don't
think
think there is.
it's like it's very like the top names are really top names.
Yeah,
So
and
yeah, it will be a tough ride for Tattoo.
yeah, I totally agree. And actually, like that's exactly what I wrote when I talked about some players in the top 10 power ranking of the teams. But we'll come back on that a bit later.
Sure. Okay, next three then. Ninth, Levi. Eighth, Skewmond. And seventh, Beichuan. I think I'm a bit all over the place here because I've got some that are like recency bias and then some that are like the complete opposite, where it's just these like legacy players that I like to put up. Hence Levi number 7 for me. But yeah, you guys have got him ninth, so we got Levi, Skewmond, Beichuan. What do we reckon?
It was a really tough one for me, honestly.
Yeah.
Like I have to say, it was really tough because I think these three honestly were for me on a very similar level. Like actually, the one I think that could be technically better is Kumon among the three. My issue with Kumon has been like he hasn't been able to contribute as much. Like he has played very well on a personal, like from a personal perspective within G2. I just think that he wasn't able to then put that, like transform that into something better for the team or like greater for the team most of the time. Or like maybe the transition wasn't as clean. And for example, Beitron is kind of like the opposite. So he actually doesn't do probably as much as Kumon in terms of individual, but he was kind of the bridge for BLG. And I think that within the jungle meta right now carries more weight because junglers need to be enablers. They need to be like the ones that actually call the temp, like have high agency throughout the early game and make sure that they can transition that into something, into a lead for their own team. Levi, honestly, for me, it's probably just because I think I rate Gam slightly lower compared to the other teams in general. I just think that the guy's still there, honestly. Like I think this is actually a really good meta for Vietnamese teams, because of how they're usually prone to liking to fights. I think that, however, I might have more. There will be a little bit more of a volatility from their side, which is why I think I kind of rated him a little bit lower. But I think actually Levi and Kiaya, like Ethan mentioned before, are the two kind of shining lights from Gam.
Yeah.
And so if there's if Gam somehow actually pulls it off, like does the magic thing of doing a random upset every international, I think it will be through them.
Yeah, and to come back on Skumond a bit, I think this guy, the problem is that he's too predictable in how he plays. I think he still has, that solo queue way of playing, which a lot of actual of the other junglers that are above him in this list don't have. And I think it's also because he's a young player, right? He just got into GLC. He need to get rid of that. But once he will get rid of that, I think he can be one of the best in GLEC at least, because of the fact that he's very good when he gets resources, and he's also very good on the later stages of the game when it comes to team fight, when it comes to clutch. He's the kind of player that can take responsibilities, And for Junja, because I see I'm the only one that put him here. To be honest, Junja, I think he's a very good player, but the problem is, in playoff at least, he was not that consistent, and to me, it's something a bit um, like it's something that comes back a lot with Junja, is that when he is playing very good, he's one of the best, even like maybe in the world, right? But when he's having like very bad games, and it often happens. I think he don't know his way back to the game. He don't know how to play with his win conditions, and especially in playoff, I think like it gave a lot of problems to CFO, because sometimes Dogo and K Wing, because I think they are the best players in this team, were actually like ahead and like add the keys of the game, and Junja would like suicide with by taking vision too deep, or by engaging too deep. And I think he's the kind of guy that if he is not ahead, he don't know really how to play the game, a bit like Skumond actually.
Sure. Let's see who's next then. So I'm guessing Junji is not going to be very far away. There you go. There he is in 6th place. 5th place, El Yoya. 4th place, Inspired.
You guys have gone hard on Bishwan.
A little
Like,
bit, yeah.
for me, it's like Beachwan is I think he's a good player, but honestly, like, especially if we have to do the comparison, because obviously he replaced Wei and then who also replaced Shun. I think there's still a bit gap like between the two,
Yeah, especially Shen.
I think he's good. I just haven't seen him play. He's been kind of been a little bit one-dimensional for the team, which I think is good because it stabilizes the team's performance. It's just that on an individual level, I cannot rate him any higher at the current moment. Like, for example, for me, Junja, which explains why I put him higher, is like has been, even though he had a shaky playoffs towards the end, and I think that also is explained by the fact that Gam was able to push them to 5 games. Is that he is very, very instrumental in driving the tempo for Sifo, which is obviously then, like you said, an issue when he cannot do it, or like when he messes up. Honestly, I would have probably rated Junja a little bit higher if it wasn't for that, because I just think that this guy has been criminally underrated throughout the past few years. Ever since he literally left the LPL to join the whatever PCS and then the LCP right now. But yeah, I mean, Elioya and Inspired, honestly, I have just very positive words for them. We already talked about Elioya a lot in previous episodes when we talked about MKOI. I'm not going to delve that into that much, but if I were to choose right now, the best Western journal, I think, is still Inspired. Partially because of the champion pool, or like I know how Inspired can pull out a little bit like Whipple, like stuff out of his cylinder, and he'll probably make it worth. And I think he has been on FlyQuest the key. Actually, also you can kind of debate that Eliolia was the same for MKOI, but I also think that MKOI had like occasionally like Supa, they also had Jojo, they also had Alvaro. It's like everyone was kind of contributing. I think that Inspired really did it, like in terms of like how much he on a personal level contributed to the entire team functioning was much like it was higher than Eliolio. So that's why I put him higher.
I think there's parallels as well, even in like kind of in the personalities. Like they both feel like on their team the ones that are like the most intense about like properly taking things seriously and doing their best. Like, think how many players go from EU to NA and then just are there just to chill and take the paycheck. Inspired's gone there and had his best years there so far, and like has just become better and better to the point where he probably is the best Western jungler, and he's doing it out of NA. So yeah,
I think he would have
I
been
think it's a
better
good time.
in EU still, but
Probably.
yeah,
You-
like he
you
was
like to
very
think so.
very good in his last year with Rogue. He was very very good.
Yeah. Well, let's see who's top three. So we've got third place, Canyon. Third place, Canyon. Jeez, this is tough. Second place, Owner, and that means first place, Tarzan. Yeah, you're right, Davide, about how stacked the jungle pool is at MSI. Like either one of those three in a tournament where the other two aren't there, they would easily be the best jungler probably.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's tough. And the Owner versus Tarzan I think, is like so close as well. Fucking hell, Canyon's probably like the GOAT jungler, and he's in third place. Madness.
Well, yeah. The thing is with Canyon is I think he has been the good jungler. Like I think in his prime, I don't think there's any jungler that is better than him. Like ever. I don't think there has ever been. But right now, I don't think Canyon is at his prime, which is the problem. I think ever since he joined GNG, he kind of had to, get his game a bit softer, which was not the case at all in G+, or Damwanga at the time. And I think, yeah, the thing is, there's only one pick that he can pull out and that, will shake a bit his champion pool is Nidalee right now. I think Genji just learns how to play with Nidalee as a carry jungler. And I think that's a problem because Canyon is not enabled at all in this kind of scenario. But yeah, other than that, yeah, I think he's like last year it was also the case at the same time of the year. I think he is like finding his rhythm on on fighters, like on skirmish heavy champions, on actually the best meta picks right now, which are Xin Zhao, Pantheon, Wukong, and everything. I think Canyon is finding his rhythm with those champions, and obviously I think he could be first in this list. Just like this top three is so stacked, what can I do? Like I think Honor has been like the most reliable piece in T1. And I think like he carried his team throughout many games. I also think he's been playing more carries than Canyon, which like for me is an important factor when you put a player high. And when it comes to Tarzan, like what can I say? This guy just murphed LPL, so and he just got his first title. I'm a big fan of the player, like usually, because I think he's very underrated. And right now I think like when like in the recent years he was up there, but he was not on the highest level, so like on Honor Canyon heights. I think like right now, yeah, he is up there, and I have to highlight it by putting him first, right?
Yep. Deserved. It's crazy
For me,
that
it
it took him
was
so long to get that
incredibly
title as well,
tough.
but yeah, go on, Davide.
It was incredibly tough to rate
Yeah.
these three. Honestly, like I had like a good like 5 minutes where I didn't know who to put first, I didn't know who to put second, I didn't know who to put third. So ultimately for me it came down to like two things. So Honor and Canyon for me being up there just because of the level the LCK has had. I think it's probably LCK is still stronger than LPL as a region, based on what I've seen. Which then put like that told me like I need to choose one between the two. I put Honor first just because in terms of how much T1 like how much how instrumental he was for T1 as a whole throughout the whole season, not just like the past few months. Like literally even when T1 was struggling, Honor was there. I think he has arguably been in terms of consistency the highest, the best jungler, and then I would have put Tarzan in second in terms of consistency. But I just think that the LCK is a little bit higher in terms of how competitive the region has been. which is why then I put Canyon second. I do think that Canyon is actually probably the one that struggled the most on Genji this year so far. He has a really tough start to the season.
Yeah.
He recovered, I think, very, very well. And most of the time, even like towards the end, he was actually, I kind of saw the Jungle King form in that sense. So that kind of explains why I put him second and I put Tarzan's third, even though I think these three are extremely, extremely close. It's like, I think that if there was like a conversation whether we put Tarzan in the LCK, he would show me a level of like being able to easily play again. Like even he probably beat those two, honestly, just because of how incredibly incredibly versatile the guy is in terms of how not only with the champion he plays, but also how he plays. And he is very, very smart in his pathing. And I think that he was definitely the key for AL's success domestically throughout the season. If AL honestly like fights for MSI title, I wouldn't be surprised. And I think a lot of the credit would probably go to Tarzan.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like very close. It doesn't like I put 1, 2, 3, but honestly, they're in the same tier in that sense for me. It's like they're clearly above everyone else.
Yeah.
I
Well, it
totally
shows
agree.
how.
And actually,
Go on.
yeah, go. Sorry.
I'll
No,
go.
just I wanted to say that there's you can make an argument about Honorary Canyon is that Lee Sin is coming back to the meta, and those two on Lee Sin, it's gonna be very, very fun to see.
I was going to say as well, like you can tell how close it was. The fact that apart from Ethan and I both having Tarzan number 1, no one else shares any of them in this other same number. Like all different third, all different, almost all different second, both Canyon, I guess. But yeah, averages very, very close. I realise I've got about 20 minutes of my time left available, so I'm going to start doing them a bit
So
quicker.
let's do 5.
I think we do. I think we cut until the top 3, so we show all 4th to 10th, and then we focus on the top 3 after.
Okay.
So let's see.
That's fine.
Mid lane. Oh yeah, I should say we're on mid lane now. Faker not in the top 3.
Oof, Knight top 4. I didn't see that.
Caps, we've got 7th behind Jojo, which I guess on form is not surprising. Yeah, what do we make of that?
Okay, so just I need to ask about Davide. What is why Knight Force? Because to me, I think he was maybe the most consistent mid laner in the LPL. It's just that I agree you can make an argument he was gapped by Shanks in playoff. I agree. But when you take the whole season, I don't think you can put him fourth, to be honest.
See, for me, honestly, this was hard. Like, I think the top 4 are actually really close. Maybe no. I mean, you could argue there's one. I think everyone knows who that will be. It's like probably a tier above the rest. But I think the other 3, so from second to 4th, they're really close. My main reason of Knight putting Knight 4th over Faker is just like I know how impactful Faker is just about being Faker, not like his in-game skills that self. But it's still, I still think that the leadership he has and the way he obviously kind of leads T1, leads the entire team, is still a clear characteristic of the player. So that has been much. Yes, exactly. I'm biased. You can see that, but I don't care. We don't care about that. It's still, I think, an innate characteristic of the player, which I think is very valuable, especially when you go to internationals. Which then explains kind of why I put him third. I mean, I didn't want to say about put him higher than Knight. About the rest, honestly, the only one I had doubts with was actually Honkyu. I think Honkyu did really good at the first time. I've seen him play in the LCP. I think he still has had maintained most similar level. I just don't think he will have as much impact this tournament because of the amount of mid laners there are. You know, so I kind of want to see more from him. I wouldn't be surprised if this guy actually is able to solo kill, like find advantages from EU Western, like from the Western mids, honestly. But he's probably the my on my watch list in that sense. More or less for the rest, it's very standard. I think aside, I mean, Ethan and I had very similar picks.
Yep.
It was always Lee is always the one ruining the fun.
Sorry.
Yeah, putting cap 6 after the
It's
season.
hard.
You're just
Come on, man. I know he's been a bit down, but it's caps. What can I say? Same with Faker, isn't it?
yeah, it's
Bloody hell.
cap. It's cap at MSI, right?
Hmm. Well, let's see. Let's see top 3 then. So I think we're going to be Knight third, right? Yeah. We got Knight,
Yeah.
and then we got Shanks, and then yeah, the most obvious one of pretty much any
Yeah.
role is Chovy number 1.
Yeah, I think he's just the best player in the world right now, right? So like putting him first off in mid lane is pretty obvious. Other than that, yeah, I see you guys. Yeah, I think Shanks. I think the thing is Shanks and Knight is very very hard to determine which is the best, because to me, as I said already, Knight was the best throughout the entire season, but like and I think also it's also a lot due to Beishuan coming in, because I think he has a much better synergy with him than he had with Wei in the first split. But yeah, Shanks, I believe like this guy played better than Knight in both finals. I think Knight underperformed, but I also think Shanks has a very like high standards in how he plays. But yeah, I just don't know. It's very hard to sort one player out. But I think both will be competing, and I'm actually very very hyped to see Shanks playing against like players like Faker and Chovy, and see where he's at on the international stage.
Yeah, for sure.
Individually, I think Shanks has been really good. I'm actually really excited to see him on first international tournament of his career. I'm not sure whether that will impact him as a whole, but I think coming into the tournament, he has shown incredible consistency. Even though I think he had the one game off, I think during the LPL finals, but in the other 3 he was like not overwhelming Knight, but he was clearly ahead as far as I remember. But yeah, honestly, I mean, look, if you look at the rankings, they have the same average. So honestly, though, like Shanks, Knight, and Faker for me belong in the same tier. It honestly just depends on matchup and how they show up on the day. I just think that, like you said, Chovy is just one step above them, clearly.
Yeah, I mean, like Chovy's pretty much playing like the best league anyone has played in history, like the last couple of years. So it's not a big surprise. All right, let's do bot lane, and let's see 4th to 10th. I'm just scanning to see what's
we're
any
incredibly
standouts.
what?
Yeah, it looks
It's
very
pretty
similar.
similar, yeah.
Yeah.
Not bad, eh? We're in sync finally. Only took us 4 rolls. There we go.
I mean, Lee, you always gonna ruin the fun again. Like I see a name that shouldn't be there. I'm afraid.
Sure.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
To be fair, this is part of
Like
it is why I've
you're
not
history
probably
biased,
watched us.
right there.
Exactly, yeah.
You are history biased.
You're a
There we go.
BLG fan.
No, but to be honest, I think Elk, like MSI is Elk's playground. Like I think this guy and On, like even though they didn't play that well in the LPL this year, so far I think those two will come with a much better shape when it comes to MSI and international events in general. So I'm looking forward to seeing them like putting their game a bit like get their game back to their standards, right? And when it comes to the other, I actually think like yeah, it's pretty fair. I think Dogo actually might be a bit underrated, but by myself too, so I'm not mad about it. Like I think this guy might have an edge over the Western ADC. I think he's just more consistent in general than both Masu and Supa. But yeah, I believe Masu and Supa may have like higher ceilings, while I think Dogo will just be more consistent anyway. And I think seeing Ansama 8 pained me a bit. I'm not gonna lie, but yeah,
You put
yeah, I
Skuma
guess he
and
deserves it.
Hansama well low, man. But those the
G2 overall are very low. Like they're
I
just
I have a
not looking
question
that
for
good.
you guys. Like, do you guys rate Hansama as in the same tier as Supa and Masu and Doggo?
No.
Because I don't. Like, I rate Doggo, Masu, and Supa at the same tier. Like in the sense that those can be technically interchangeable. It's just that I think it's a matter of preferences. Like, for example, I put Supa just because I think that his champion pool and the fact that hyper carries I think are slowly coming back will be beneficial for him. Um, and yeah, I agree with the fact that Supa and Masuk have definitely higher ceilings than Doggo. I think Doggo is more consistent. But I don't think Hansama is in their same tier based on what we've seen so far, which
It's
for
just not
me
been the
is
same
a
without
concern.
Mickey, really. I don't think.
Yeah.
And just like one thing about Ansama, it's also that it's not his meta at all. Like there's multi-flanking with which has always been his main struggle, and there is less laning, which has always been his best quality. So I just think
I
the
mean, the
meta
whole
does not
thing.
suit him at all.
Yeah, I mean the lane finish I think is still important with the Drake's dragon stacking. It's something that I mentioned when I did a T1 analysis. I just think that the fearless drafts actually bans you a lot of options, which then forces like for example, Kalista and Varus are going to be very high priority, but you will like it's incredibly hard that you will get to go like you will get to play those two champions, and even if you get to choose them, they'll probably be answered somehow very tough in terms of like how the enemy then drafts the counting composition around it to make sure that you don't get to play like the pick as like you want to. So I think that has been hurting Hansama a lot. And which is why I don't think he is in the same tier as the other three.
No, that's fair, I think. Let's do our top three then. Third place, Hope. Second place, Ruler. First place, Gumayushi.
I mean, I've seen such a big debate about this. So like there's like literally I remember there was like a Twitter feed on after I made a like I think I remember to like a community post, and I was getting like told off because I rated Ruler higher. Like everyone say I was saying I was mad, like I was crazy to rate Ruler higher than Guma, and there was like the whole thing about Guma being the best AD in the world. It's like I see them
I
on a
think they're
similar
very
level.
close. Yeah.
Yes, I think it's still very close. Honestly, I would even put Hope close to them. But actually, that also explains why. Like honestly, if in terms of ceiling, I think Rula and Guma are way higher than Hope. Is that Hope has been incredibly consistent, and I was very like surprised to see him being like reach to that level because like it's kind of it's something I haven't seen. Like I know Hope was a really good ADC in the past, like a pretty good ADC for LPL,
But he
but
had downs,
I feel
yeah.
like this is his peak. Like or
Yeah.
maybe AL has done some magic and he's basically now working very well within that like machine. He's like a really good clock. Um, but yeah, for me, Ruler and Guma was really hard. I think that some people say that Ruler put JNG sometimes at like in tough positions. I think Guma. It's like Guma has had the biggest issue of not being able to show his performance or like show his level in the first part of the LCK, due to the whole Guma Smash thing,
Mhm.
which is why I think Rula has been like has had more to show, and then I think he was a little bit more consistent. I think actually Guma had the higher peak. I agree with that. Like if
Yeah.
you look at the T like series in the qualification to MSI, he has a really good performance. I just think that there are two things. The first one is that Ruler, if you go back and watch the Genji T1, like T1, like Genji was always the one coming out on top, you know.
But it
And
was
I think that
often due to Kin overtaking the map, right? Like after snowballing
yes,
on
but
Doran.
I think it's just that like Ruler didn't get shit on by Guma in that sense,
No, for
you
sure,
know.
for sure.
So for me, it's just that honestly, it's a matter of preference. I think if we look at potential like peak potential, I think Guma would probably be higher. It's just like my criteria of being like counting consistency, which then explains why I put Hope above Hulk, even though I think Hulk technically has a higher ceiling than Hope.
Yep.
That's like my main criteria. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. I just think like it's funny because you were like I think the main defender of Gumayushi when there was that Smash Guma debate. But yeah,
I was like I defend because I think actually Guma is the better player between the two. I
yeah,
just thought
and I
that
think
like
it shows
Smash
like you were right.
like Smash I think if from like T1's like coaching staff perspective, finding a carry player and try to see if that carry player fits is a good test. I don't think they've managed it well. Or like they probably should have managed it in a certain like another way. I just think that like Guma is still Guma. It's not like he was off. And
Yeah.
I think it's also it has also proven the fact that T1 without proper screen time and without actually like breaking down everything, they are a team that struggle. Which then we kind of in a broader perspective kind of now puts me into a question like whenever like there's a major meta shift, T1 is slow to adapt. Like they take more time because they need to figure out like how they first kind of need to figure out what works for them, and then they need to figure out what works for them and that also kind of gives them the edge over the opponents.
Yeah.
That takes a lot of time to make it work. So you always kind of expect them to be as like a slow start, a slow burner in that sense, but they'll eventually get there. And once they get there, you know they will be close to the top. You know.
Okay, let's whiz through the last couple because I'm very tight for time now. So support, I'm just gonna reveal the whole lot. Okay.
Okay.
Well, we'll go to the top three. Take a brief pause, and then there we go. Carrier number one, another whitewash, like Chovy
Yeah,
and like Keen, which
we
probably
are
not hugely surprising. And I think we're
like we
pretty much in line with most of these.
yeah. I'm pretty like shocked that we've all put Keria first, to be honest, because that's very recency biased. I feel like to me like Keria was not that good in the like whole span of the season. Obviously, it had to do with the fact that he had to change AGs in the middle of the split. But yeah, overall, I think just to go back a bit on ADC2 because I think the bot lane as a whole in T1 is something that is very important to their playstyle. Like especially with Doran right now playing more of the weak side position. So I think I'm looking forward to see them play against the best in the world because I actually think they showed a very very like good level in the Road to MSI, and I'm pretty hyped to see if they can keep up to that at the international, especially because they usually does, right? They usually do, and yeah, I think as you said, very important for them to have their marks on the meta, and I think right now they have. Also because the meta doesn't change that much, especially in the bot lane for GMSI. Maybe you'll see more Aphelios, I think, but I'm not even sure of that. So yeah, overall, yeah, I'm very hyped about Kyle too. Duo will play his very first international event, which I think is important for him, especially because Genji will go to Worlds with the ambition to win it too. So he has to get that first experience before and see how it goes. And Alvaro 5, I'm happy that we will put him in the fifth place because this guy deserves it. I think he's the best in the West. I think even though K-Wing played very well and is very like underrated too, I think by the like public opinion, I think just Alvaro might, I think on certain champion he might be the best in the world. To be honest, like that may be a hot take. I think like on maybe on Rel and Alistar, I think he can be the best of this list. And especially I'm saying that because Delight is not there. I think if Delight was there, maybe I would have changed my mind. But in this list, I think it can be the best on those two champions, which are I think two of the most important picks in the meta. And especially I think mechanically is like one of the best for sure.
Well, let's
For
see.
me, the whole thing about Karen KO, sorry,
No, go quick.
it's like, yeah, it's like I actually had Kale initially at first. The only reason I moved Carry up is just that I think the peak potential from Carry can be higher. Like I feel like Kale is kind of like is doing really well. I'm not sure if I can see more from him. You could argue that in terms of consistency is actually better. It was really hard for me to convince myself to put Carry lower, just because of the player he is. And I think he was probably like his underperformance didn't really come down to himself in that sense. It was like the team dynamic completely changed during the Smash Guma days. And he was the most affected because he obviously had to play with a different laner, but also coordinate with his jungle in a completely different way. I just think that I'm assuming, I hope that the carrier we saw at the qualification to MSI is the one that we'll see at MSI.
Yeah, because this one was the best in the world for sure.
Yes, literally, it was like world class performance.
Yeah. Okay, we've got about a minute and a half to say why Gen.G
is the best team in the world.
Is winning MSI, and in the final they're going to beat T1. There we go. I mean, Gen.G number one is
imagine,
like
me it's AL.
Just to make it short, like imagine you're in the best league in the world and you just make a perfect split. Like it's just nonsense, right?
Ethan, they didn't win it. There was no winner. They didn't win it.
They had the first ticket.
Gen.G have not even won anything in spring. How can they be number one? There we go.
Yeah, no, I think just doing 18-0 in the best league in the world with only 5 games, because that's also a thing. They only dropped 5 games in like
it's crazy.
36. I think they played 41 games and they only dropped 5. Yeah, I just think this team looks unbeatable on paper. I think it will a lot come down to T1 to me. Like I saw Davide putting AL second. I actually think AL have a good chance, but I just think LCK is just too high over them. And I think T1 I think it depends on what version of T1 we will see in the MSI.
Which is why I rated them third. I still have doubts.
Yeah.
No.
Well, you can ever is there one thing, like if there was one thing we learned from the recent LoL Esports history, is that you can never count T1 out, right?
No, for sure.
Exactly.
For sure.
Well, there we have it. Gen.G are winning MSI. Sorry to spoil it, everybody, but we know what's going to happen. But there we
surprise.
go. But yeah, that's it for this week. Thank you guys for joining me once again. Thank you everybody for watching, and we'll see you maybe next week. Maybe we could fit one in the off day. We'll see. Yeah, we'll do our best, and we'll see you then.